Well, Reform MP Richard Tice is with us now. Your party called on the Prime Minister to answer a lot of questions. He's been addressing some of that. What do you make of it?
The Prime Minister is continuing to deliberately mislead the British people to continue suiting his own narrative. And I'm afraid all of this nonsense that he couldn't say anything is simply untrue. And it's not true to say that the nature of terrorism has changed. In 2016, the murder of Joe Cox, Thomas Mayer was immediately declared an act of terrorism by one individual. 2017, the murder of Keith Palmer here in Westminster by Khalid Massoud, immediately declared an act of terror. August 18, car attack outside Westminster, immediately declared an act of terror by one individual. December 18, Murray Mohammed stabbing 3 people in Manchester Airport, an act of terror declared immediately by one individual. What's happened here is that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, as he admitted this morning, knew within hours what was going on. He will have known about the background of this individual. They've made the deliberate judgment to withhold information from the British people that they could have told the British people because Axel Rudakubana was not charged until the 1st of August. So we could have been told, we should have been told about the prevent and the failings, and it should have been declared a terror incident within 24 hours. That is why the British people were so angry and are still raging about this.
You say the phrase deliberately mislead. The question then is, from your perspective, if that is the case, and I'm sure Sir Keir would very much disagree with you, why?
Because I'm afraid I think it's to do with political correctness. They were nervous about the background of this individual and the failings of institutions multiple times. Prevent that we'd already been told. After the London Bridge attacks, we'd already been told that Prevent was going to be reorganised and sorted out. We knew of its failings. Didn't happen. We hear that police, he'd been in touch with the police, he'd been in touch with court, youth justice service. Everybody was covering their backsides. They all had something to hide, and therefore it didn't suit them to disclose this information. This is a massive cover-up of massive proportions, and the British people need to understand the truth.
The Prime Minister said earlier that if the trial had collapsed because crucial details had been revealed by he or others whilst the case was being built, that Axel Rudakubana could have walked free. That's his argument as to why...
That is misleading waffle and nonsense. The guy hadn't been charged, OK? So we know what the law of the land is, as does the Prime Minister, and I've just listed out a series of previous instances where the British people were told within 24 or 36 hours that it was a terror incident, often being told the background of the individual before they were charged. So I'm sorry, Prime Minister, but you are deliberately misleading the British people. You are creating a false narrative, and we're not going to tolerate it.
He says that laws need to be reviewed, reformed and changed.
They don't. The laws are there. They're absolutely fine, as has previously been set out, as I've just listed, 4 cases.
But if it is the case that the framework within which Prevent is working isn't broad enough to identify a child such as this who's obsessed with genocide, mass killings, school shootings...
How much more information do you need?
But is it not the case, as he's trying to make, that it does need reform to the Prevent protocol?
You're right, the country needs reform because we're sick and tired of this incompetence by multiple authorities across the establishment. We've just had enough of these multiple failures. We were told Prevent was going to be reformed and changed, and it wasn't. You know, root and branch reform of all of this stuff is required. It is totally, totally unacceptable.
So do you welcome these new reviews, these new inquiries?
Look, it's interesting. I mean, let's have a public inquiry, because we need to know hour by hour who knew what, when, and why decisions were made to withhold information from the British public. Nigel Farage was quite right to say questions need to be asked. He was quite right to say that the truth was being withheld from us, and he was completely wrongly smeared and labelled as being responsible for the appalling riots that then took place. If we'd been told the truth, I don't think those riots would have taken place to anything like that degree. Therefore, the responsibility for those riots, arguably, rests with the people who deliberately withheld information from the British people.
Nigel Farage, you mentioned him there, he was criticised. It comes as no surprise to me to tell you that. You are well aware of it. Do you stand by the way that your criticisms were levelled, the phraseology, the language that was used during the time?
He's just been proven right. He's literally been proven right. That we said questions need to be asked and answered, and he said, is the truth being withheld? And it turns out The truth was being withheld. The Home Secretary and the Prime Minister knew exactly what was going on. Rudakubana had not been charged. We need to know when they discovered the contents of the monster's bedroom and why they made those decisions to say that it's a non-terror-related incident. The day after, and then even months later, on the 29th of October, the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police inexplicably still said it's non-terror-related.
Richard Tice, Reform MP, thank you for your time. We will continue to bring you more on that story as it develops through the coming days and weeks. We're also going to bring you more from the United States. We're going to turn our attention and focus to Washington, D.C.